Boom, y'all! Welcome in here to this kind of intimate, small, but hopefully impactful training for you today on profit planning, and looking forward to next year. How are you going to make sure that your business stays or gets profitable? We're going to look at things like how do we determine pricing. We're going to look at things like how should we go about hiring? How do we make plans for what's actually coming up, and not just shoot blindly at the kind of in the dark, so to speak, in our business, and actually hit the next year with a clear plan. And are we going to be able to create every aspect of our plan today? No, we're going to get a good high level view of where am I at, where do I need to be going, identifying the major kind of slow down or squeeze points in your business, to look at how do you make sure that you create a business that's truly profitable for you over the next year. Will, I guess we'll just preface this with people are going to be on here coming on live, but if you're watching the replay, hopefully you also get a good sense of, for your business, where things are really at. We'll do some Q&A at the end here, by the way. So y'all, as you have questions, feel free to write them down, and we'll make sure and do kind of a deep dive Q&A. We decided that this is going to be a little bit more of an intimate training, and that there's real value in having the ability to go back and forth at the end and talk through these different principles. So we'll get into numbers. We're going to share all our numbers, actually, like all our numbers since the beginning of our business. I went back through and pulled a bunch of different profitability numbers. That was really good to see for myself, and we're just going to encourage you to be open with where you're at. And if you're here on the replay, I'd really encourage you to take notes, write down actual numbers as we're going through this, and don't just treat it like a passive learning experience, but like an active way for you to get a checkup on where the business is at. Will, any thoughts as we kick things off, dude?
I'm pumped. I think this is super critical. If you're watching this on the replay, I hope that you take some time to pull out a pen, some paper, be ready to think about the future. I think we often are, as business owners, I'm sure those of you that are on here live can relate to this. You get caught in the day-to-day. What do I need to do today? What do I need to do tomorrow? But we have a really great opportunity to pause now and plan for 2022. And it's something that I struggled with for a long time, is sitting down and planning. I still can't say I'm like great at it, but we definitely do a much better job now of being able to pause, look, what are our goals? What do we want to aim for? What's really cool is we've had this happen plenty of times where people actually have to do less to hit their goal than they think. And they wouldn't have known that had they not paused to stop and map this out. So I'm really excited. I think it's an incredible opportunity for people to get really clear and see a path ahead for themselves.
Yeah. All right, let's do this. Let's share. And in fact, Will, I want to make sure that story didn't end up in the slides. I want to make sure we hit on that at some point here. That'll come up, I'm sure, where we actually realized for a lot of people they need to do less in their business instead of more. And it's a really counterintuitive thing for driven type A personalities that many entrepreneurs are. But hopefully you get a sense of, as we go through this, gosh, I could actually make my business a lot more simple, and that makes it more profitable for me, which is exciting. So today, the goal is to help you make more money and keep more money so that you can grow your money. And just a really quick little intro to us here as we dive in. By the way, for those of you who are on here live, I would love for you right now to just pause and take a second, or if you're watching on the replay, and type in the comments or write it down on a piece of paper. What questions do you have about planning for profitability and growth over the next year? Why don't you just pause for a second to think about, okay, what's on my mind right now? What am I unsure about for planning for my profit over the next year? Think about that for a minute. I think that you get a lot more out of a presentation or a learning experience or whatever when you come to it with specific questions in mind. So I want to invite you to just take a second and think through, what questions do you have about planning for your profitability over the next year? Maybe it's something as simple as, I don't really even know how to calculate my profitability. Maybe it's, I don't know what level I need to be at and what's okay and what's allowable for my type of business. Maybe it's, hey, I'm not sure. I really want to double growth over the next year, but I'm not sure if I'm going to have to like work my guts out to have to do that, if I even want that as a goal. I want you to think about, what are your questions or things that are floating around in your head right now. We're going to pull them out of your head, put them on paper, and or put them in the chat if you're here live. And I'll just preface this too, for those of you who are watching the replay, my apologies, I'm sick this week, so you're going to hear raspy voice Alex, but we'll make it through together, I promise.
Raspy
as we're
voice.
going through
Even a
here.
raspy voice, Alex brings the fire. It's going to be exciting. I want to know real quick because it's coming up. Like I think it's coming up fast. If you're on here live, we got a handful of you. How are you feeling about taxes? 0 to 10. 0 being like, please, dear God, I hope that the IRS decides to not do taxes this year. To 10 out of 10 being like, I already have it down to a T exactly how much I owe and need to pay for my taxes that are coming up. So that is the worst word I have heard, right? Taxes. So we're coming up to that stage. Luckily, I would be feeling the same way, Kristen, if it weren't for Alex and Alex helping me have a plan. He used to be a 0, says David. 10, thanks to you guys. Cool. I know that's a big thing. One of the emails I sent out was how we're saving $15,000 a year, at least $7,500 each this year, which has been huge. So follow-upper says 8, which is awesome. I love it. 0, Jen right now. So Jen, you're in that moment. We might have to talk, Jen, be able to help you out with that, give you some clarity and feel confident about that. So I just know it's that time of year. It's the thing where it's like, yeah, I'm excited for growth, but like, crap, I still got to pay my taxes. So we can relate to that. We know what that's like. And yeah, I just think it's an interesting time. So hopefully you can have that feeling clear, and it makes it so much easier to be able to have the mental space to plan when you've got that part under control.
Yeah, I'm actually planning out a big taxes presentation that we're going to be doing here for everyone as a workshop coming up in the next little bit. So if that's a topic that you really want to understand at a deep level, stay tuned for that definitely, because that's a big one. All right, let's dive in. Let's talk about this, because in the next 90 minutes, we're going to show you the 3 most important principles of profit planning that we've uncovered after generating over $1 million online, which is still wild for me to think about, at a 63+% profit margin, and working with hundreds of business owners who've hired us to help them grow businesses that generate consistent high profits. And a lot of you already know us, but if you don't, I'm Alex Engar. I'm dad to 3 little princesses. We took some great family photos last year. And then, of course, the family changes like every 6 months. So I'll just like Photoshop the new baby in here. I'm an active Christian, a Spikeball junkie, if you know what Spikeball is, a doctor of physical therapy, and profitability nerd, along with my partner in crime, Will Boyd, who's an amazing dog dad. Look at this face, y'all. Look at that. Like, is that not the cutest? I'm talking about the dog's face. Will's face too, amazing. But that, oh my goodness, Bella, just so dang cute. I need some updated pictures, because I think this is when she was teeny tiny little puppy. But just an absolute beast at marketing and business growth. Doctor of physical therapy as well. And I'm just going to say this. He didn't put this on here. I did. He's a really good athlete. Like, Will is a very solid athlete. So I'm going to put on here nearly pro soccer player Will. At this point, you could probably, he already retired from physical therapy, probably at the point where he wants to retire from business coaching and just go pro soccer. He totally could if he wanted to. But our story is basically that we fell into really wanting something beyond a 9-to-5 career role where we could really be, I hate the term be our own boss, but we wanted to live life kind of the way that we saw it best fitting. And for Will, a lot of it was having the freedom to be able to go out and play soccer, and be able to take good care of his health from a physical and mental health standpoint. For me, a lot of the same things. I want to be able to take care of my family in the way that I feel like I want to take care of them. Dang it, I wanted financial freedom, and that wasn't coming from operating in a 9-to-5 job. But the funny thing is, it also wasn't coming from running a cash poor business. And a lot of the stuff that we realized early on in our business was that, we get into entrepreneurship, so excited about the financial freedom aspect of it, but we're not taught how to manage money as an entrepreneur. And so we just keep staying in this cycle of being cash poor businesses. While you might have great revenue numbers, what you're actually taking home is far lower than that. And so today we're going to be talking about true profitability and understanding this term profit margin at what might be a basic level for you, or it might be a really advanced one. We're going to start with the basics and work our way up. Okay. Will, I should, before we move on, anything else that you wanted to preface this with from our story side of things?
Nope. I think we're like anybody else, right? We're not, I shouldn't say it. Alex has always been a little more solid on the financial side of stuff, but we were like anybody else. We were starting a business. We had no business experience. We were not born. I don't know if I don't know if we were born entrepreneurs or not. I'm still trying to figure that out. But I know we weren't. We didn't go into life, especially our adult life. We thought we were gonna be physical therapists. So by no means are we special or talented beyond means that anybody else can achieve. And we're gonna go through like our journey of being able to keep this business profitable because there was a point in which we were making a lot of money and we weren't keeping a lot. And then the question becomes, well, what's the point, right? Like it's just so much work. And we work with people every single week where they work so hard, but they don't keep any of the money that they make, or they don't realize how little they actually can take home. And we look at, you can sustain off that for a while, but what's the end goal? The end goal is ultimately we want to be able to build wealth, whether it's for ourselves or for future generations that are hopefully are going to come down the line at some point. So all that's to say, like, we're not mathematic whizzes, we're not statistical geniuses, right? Alex might be a spreadsheet guru. David can attest to that. But otherwise, like, just absolutely normal people who wanted to find a different way out than doing the traditional kind of corporate grind.
Yeah. I don't know if any of y'all have heard of the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. I remember when I stumbled on that, it was just before I was getting into PT school. And then about at the year mark, I started getting really serious about it and thinking, gosh, I really want to retire by age 40. And in order to do that, I needed to have like $3.4 million socked away. It was on a vision board early on that I was like, I got to have this giant lump of money. And I just had this moment of realization where it's like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do that working a 9-to-5 job without some really heavy investing smarts as well on top of that. Like I can't just not spend anything for the next 10 years and hit that. And that's what actually ultimately got me into wanting to be a business owner, was realizing if I wanted real control over my financial destiny, I couldn't just do it working for someone else. I had to figure out how this whole business thing worked, how to create value in the world at a high level. And now it's morphed into, okay, now that I've created value, how do I keep that value? And that's, as we went on that journey ourselves, we realized that a lot of other entrepreneurs struggled with this stuff, and it's grown into what we do now. So let's talk about what profit margin means. We're actually going to get into the meat of this here, start diving into this. So at a basic level, profit margin is just how much you keep compared to what you actually earn, right? So if we look at it from a math standpoint, don't worry, there's not going to be too much math here, but it's revenue minus expenses equals profit. A lot of us know this, right? So if I give an example, hey, if I make $100 and I have to spend 25 in order to make that, then I have a profit of $75. Cool. So if I look at that, that's $75 divided by my total revenue gives me my profit margin, okay? So profit divided by revenue gives me my profit margin. So let's take just a second, and I want you to look at your current profit margin, okay? So this could be if you've got, if you know off the top of your head, or you've got easy access to it, and hey, I know I've made about $100,000 this year and I've spent $20,000. Cool, you can do it on a yearly basis. If not, then maybe let's just pick a month. Maybe let's think through last month. You might not have all these numbers really easily accessible, which might be a sign to you that you need to work on this. But if I were to ask you, hey, what's your profit margin right now in your business? I want you to take a minute and actually calculate this, okay? Or estimate it. That's fine if you don't have actual numbers. I want you to just think about it in your head for a minute. Think about, okay, last month, how much did I make? About how much did I spend? And so what was my profit? And then we just take profit divided by revenue, and we get our profit margin from that, okay? I want you to take 30 seconds or so and think through that. Actually get it out on paper. I want you to put your profit margin, whether it was for last month or for the year, I want you to put your profit margin in the chat, okay? And this is a completely no judgment zone. We're going to be sharing all our numbers too. Sometimes our numbers were great. Sometimes our numbers weren't, as you're going to see. And it's more about understanding where you're at. This is the first step of anything is, in Alcoholics Anonymous, the first step is, hi, I'm Alex and I'm an alcoholic. Not that I am, but that's the first step, right? Is admitting where we're at so that we can grow going forward. And is that expenses just business related? Yes. Yep. Kristen, great question. Is this just looking at business expenses? Yeah, because we want to look at what's the profit margin of the business itself. And business and personal finances are very interlaced, especially early on, right? But for right now, we're going to look at just in the business, revenue minus expenses gives me my profit. Profit divided by that revenue number gives me my profit margin. And you have to multiply that number by 100. It's going to be like 0.75. So great, multiply that by 100 at 75%. Okay, so about 1,300 per month profit margin. Okay, so we're gonna turn it into a percentage now. Okay, so we're gonna look at this here. This is our profitability. I went and actually pulled all of our numbers from all our tax documents for the past 4 years, and then our part way through the year 2021 numbers, looking at where were we at. So you can look at revenue over here. Here's our revenue. Here's our expenses. Here's our profit. Now, what I really care about is my profitability percentage. Okay. So what percentage of profit am I making in my business? And you can see early on, well, the first year we hardly did anything. I think we had started our business in late November. We actually got super lucky, to be honest. The very first money we made just blew my mind. We sold a $100 course and we sold 100 of them, and then a little bit of extra coaching on top. It was so funny. But you can see how our profitability numbers have changed. So that very, very first 2 months, great, we were around 60%. The second year, for us, this was just explosive growth. I still looking at this, can't believe how quickly things grew for us. But hey, we spent about half of our money that we made. Most of that, to be honest, was coaching. A lot of our business expenses have been coaching, if you were to break it out. But it's also what allowed us to grow quickly. So we dropped down to about 50%. And then year 3, where we made our first, it was about 300,000. Our expenses stayed pretty darn low. And you can see that we were at a profitability percentage of 70%. Year 4, which was 2020, our expenses crept up a little bit. Our revenue did too. Again, lots and lots of coaching. We started dabbling in paid ads and hiring. Profit dropped just a little bit. This year, this is interesting because Will and I have always run a very lean business. And this year, we started deciding to put a lot of money into paid advertising, thousands of dollars a month. We hired a really expensive but really good coach. We started hiring quite a few team members. And I started seeing our profitability percentage drop significantly. And it got to the point where I was like, actually, I wonder if we've maybe done a little bit too much. I wonder if we've maybe hired a little bit too much. Maybe we're spending a little bit too much on other softwares and platforms. Our monthly expenses were just cranking up. We went from spending somewhere around, I think, $5,000 a month to more like $11,000 to $12,000 a month pretty quickly. And our revenue wasn't going up at the same rate. So Will and I actually had a kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, like a reality check moment where it's like, hey, is this the business that we want to keep building? And we had to ask ourselves, is this profitability something that we want to scale? We're going to talk about later. You don't want to scale something that's not profitable. And we'll see why. But pretty obvious that you don't want something to grow that isn't actually profitable. And so we had to hit pause on a lot of what we were doing. We actually changed our offers very significantly. We changed our advertising significantly. We changed our team significantly. We cut expenses like crazy. And I was looking at it, the last quarter of 2021 here, we're going to be at about an 85% profitability margin. And we challenged ourselves to try to hit a much more profitable stride in our business. And if all the numbers keep going the way they're going, which we've got a lot of stuff locked in, I think that we're going to probably hit that. And so I bring this up to have you look at how much am I really bringing in the business that gets to stay with me. And the question for today really is, how can you plan for massive profitability over the next year? And I think it starts with this question right here. I want you to think about this. Put your answer down in the comments, and either one or two. Which of these would you rather have? 1, $1 million a year business that pays you $100K, or 2, a $300,000 per year business that pays you $200K. Right? Okay. 2 is so much better, right? Oh my goodness. A much simpler business that pays you double, or a much more complicated business that pays you half, right? Here's the funny thing. All of us logically know that 2 is better. So many of us don't actually act that way in our business though. We all look at that number and we say, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I want the $200K and I only want it to be a $300,000 a year business. But so many business owners don't actually take the actions that end with that. They act like they need to reinvest, spend in their business to grow, and scale. And they just keep scaling unprofitable. And I think this is the perfect point to tell this story, Will, of a client that came to us earlier in the year with a high revenue business. Do you want to tell that story real quick of the high revenue business that we actually had to put the brakes on revenue a little bit and actually look at profitability? Because that changed things so much when we looked at it from a different lens.
Yeah. Well, first off, going back through our profitability numbers, I realized I had written in the emails above a 70% profit margin in our business. So I feel bad that I lied, but I was thinking without the coaching investments that we've made. So if you were to take out our coaching and just talked about true expenses in our business that are relevant directly to our operations of our business, I think this would drastically change the numbers.
Oh, yeah.
It's been by far and away our number one expense. So when I say that, in case someone, I would like to hold us accountable and not be like, we lied to you. I was thinking of that in mind. So if you take out coaching, they would definitely hit that goal. But yeah, so there's a great story of something super interesting. We asked one of our clients, we were helping with business coaching. So part of what we've been doing is helping online business owners grow through marketing and sales and helping them hire team and virtual assistants. Really great stuff. And the reason we do this now is because kind of this conversation that we had with one of our very successful on the surface successful business owners that we were working with, and under the surface too, she's very successful, but not quite to the extent that she realized. She was making $300,000 a year and really wasn't having to put a ton of effort into it, which was amazing. It's like, wow, that, to think, wow, you make 300K a year, not to put a ton of effort in, that's great. And then we asked, okay, what's your goal for next year? And the answer was, I want to do $500,000. Okay, cool. Why is that? It just sounds like a great number and I want progress. Like, great. Okay. Totally makes sense. How much of that do you want to keep? I don't know. I've never thought about it that way. We're like, wait, what? Like, the whole point to make more money is to keep more money, right? And it was super interesting. We had this whole breakdown and then it got us going into, well, how much of the 300,000 are you keeping? And we won't go into specific numbers, but needless to say, that here's what we found out. We found out that even though somebody was making a ton of revenue, they weren't keeping as much as you would think. And we realized that they had multiple offers, and one of their offers was bringing in like half of the revenue, but it also cost almost the exact same amount to deliver on. And I know you're thinking, oh, well, how could they not know that? There are a lot of you guys who are running businesses right now with offers or services that you're hardly actually making any profit on those offers or services, especially if you break it down to time or what you're paying somebody else to do. And we said, great, well, what if we looked at it this way? Instead of making 500K, let's say that you're taking home, 50,000 this year. What do you want to take home next year? I want to take home 100,000. The cool thing was we did the math. This person, our client, they actually didn't even need to make 500,000. They didn't even need to make $300,000. They only needed to make about, I can't even remember what the number he came up with, Alex, but it was less than $200,000.
Yeah.
And they just need to get rid of the one offer that was not profitable for them and shift all of their energy into the offer that was like 70+% profitable. And when we did this, here's the crazy thing. It wasn't like oh yeah, perfect, I need to do that. There was this whole psychological thing of why I emotionally attached myself to building this business this way and this offer, and I feel really good about this. And we looked at it and said, it doesn't meet your personal goal. It doesn't meet your profit goal for what you want to do. And we got into, well, what's the reasons for making that much more money to take home? Well, they wanted to make sure they had all their college fund for their kids, so they didn't have to go into so much student loan debt. They wanted to be able to contribute to their house. They want to be able to, if their husband, if their spouse wanted to take some time off, that they'd be able to cover that. And we got into that and it was like, okay, well, do you want to rely on this emotional attachment to an offer that's taking up so much time, is making you literally zero money, but you feel like it does something good? And sure, it does. It's not that it didn't do anything good, but it didn't meet the personal goal. Or you can get rid of it and actually be able to have all of that and even have more time. I say that because it wasn't a simple, like you might be looking at this and go, oh, just cut it, duh. I think what happens as business owners, we get very, very emotionally attached to things like 2 Comma Club award, right? If you are in the ClickFunnels world, like 2 Comma Club award, I got to get it. Do you know how many people have made $1 million but spent $900,000 to get that? And you look at that, and this question is beautiful about that is, what really matters here? Is it, if it is a egotistical put it on a poster or on my wall kind of goal, there's nothing wrong with that. Just know that there are a lot easier ways to actually keep and make and keep a lot more money than necessarily going after that route. So anyways, that was the story. The cool thing is, maybe we'll get into this too, is Alex was able to help her uncover just like this mass amount of money that she had. I don't mean uncover like it wasn't there, but it was just nervous to move it, had accumulated money, was nervous to actually move the money, and needed a path to actually be able to use it, like put it into her hands and give her power over it.
Yeah. I think that something that's so interesting is this shift that I feel like the entrepreneur world needs to make so drastically. And David, you mentioned this here. It's that so many 2 Comma Club winners are broke. It's pathetic. I see it firsthand. It's really tough when in the marketing and online business world, so much we see people flashing their big numbers up of, oh, we did this, we did this, we did this. And it causes this FOMO. And you think that being successful means huge revenue numbers. And so a lot of business owners will measure their success emotionally by what their top line revenue is, how much money their business brought in. When at the end of the day, it does not matter how much it brings in. It matters what you keep. It matters what you keep. And so for some reason we think, well, I don't need to keep anything right now because I'm building that $1 million business. So I got to reinvest and reinvest and reinvest and reinvest. But what if that never happens? Honestly, what if COVID hits and all of a sudden your business just comes to a grinding halt because of factors outside of your control? What if that happens? That was the reality for so many people last year. So many people, for a number of reasons, whether COVID, market changing conditions, a competitor comes out with something different, your solution becomes irrelevant for one reason or another, and all of a sudden this business that you were building up towards one day taking cash out of it just dissolves or stops becoming relevant, and you didn't take money out along the way. That's what happens if we don't get on top of this. And I think this is such an important lesson that Alex Hormozi teaches. If you don't follow Alex Hormozi, you absolutely should. He has an amazing YouTube channel, a podcast, lots of great books. And this really stuck out to me. He has an episode, I think it's episode 296 or 297 of his podcast. And it's called Warren Buffett's Most Important Business Metric, something along those lines. And he dives into this a lot. So before we get there, thinking about Warren Buffett, if you don't know him, obviously he's this prolific investor, used to be the richest man in the world. Then Jeff Bezos came along. Then Elon Musk also came along. And very wealthy dude, right? Has a long track record of investing in very profitable companies or making them very profitable, making great calls on the things he invests in. And this is the most important business metric as per him. And this is again coming through Alex Hormozi. He says the most important business metric, it's not revenue. It's what he calls net free cash flow. And it's different from profit. And so today, yes, we're talking about profit, but I don't want you to get this wrong. Net free cash flow is the amount of money that you take out of your business after your business invests in staying ahead of the competition. So I'm the kind of guy who likes to see pictures because I'm a little too stupid to understand like words, right? So net free cash flow, we'll see a picture example here, but net free cash flow is what you take out of the business, aka what you pay yourself, what you keep personally after the business invests in staying ahead of the competition. Okay. So picture time here. This is net free cash flow for dummies. You've got a business and that business has profit, right? Revenue minus expenses. There's profit. Here's the problem. A lot of times people have that profit bucket and then they say, well, I made profit. I'm a successful business owner. Now I'm going to reinvest it all back in the business. That's not actually taking profit. That's just continuing to feed a hungry dog, right? Instead, what he's saying is net free cash flow is the metric that you should really be measuring your business by. Meaning, what do I get to take out of the business to pay myself after I have still reinvested in the business? That's the one metric that actually matters. That's the thing that we're going to focus on as the golden goose of the business. It's not just profit alone. It's not just what's revenue minus expenses. It's revenue minus expenses and then still being able to reinvest and still having money on top of it. And I'm going to tell you right now, it takes a lot of money made in a business to be able to still have net free cash flow at the end of the day. It just does. Business is expensive, y'all. And for a lot of you coming into this, if you don't come from a business background or a background where wealth was frequently talked about in your family and you come from a place where talking about money and becoming wealthy was seen as something negative, or getting money was seen as you taking from someone else. Oh, you probably had to steal from them to get that, right? They had to come out under and you had to come out on top. You really need to look internally and break some of these paradigms. It is okay for you to make money. In fact, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to make money in order for the business to survive. You have to do this, okay? So how do we do it? I want to talk for a minute about your business growth priorities. You might be on this training right now and not actually need to focus on this training. And if this is the case, I'm actually just going to invite you to maybe listen passively in the background or just peace out and go learn what you really should learn. Will, you can contradict me on this, but I feel very strongly after all we've done that these are the business growth priorities. Number one, you need to learn how to market, meaning get in front of people. If you don't know how to get in front of people, how do you ever expect a business to grow? Number two, once you know how to get in front of people, you need to know how to sell. And selling involves making your offer, getting it in front of people, actually closing the deal, and then probably some of the delivery aspect of that. But you get in front of people, number one, then you learn how to sell. Once you learn how to get in front of people and sell, then it makes sense to hit this profit talk. So many people try to get their numbers all optimized and all this stuff before they're even marketing and selling. Just go learn how to market and sell. That should be the first thing. Go learn how to make money and then deal with the profitability side. And then you scale. What I see a lot of people doing is trying to scale before they even know how to market and sell. That's terrible. That's called a money vacuum. And that's when we have people who spend and spend and spend for years and years and years and are in every coaching program. They've bought every book, every course, but they're still not making any money. They're trying to scale before they even know how to market and sell. Just go make some sales first. Just go make some sales. If you notice back really quick, the one thing that I'm really, where is it? Right here. For Will and I, from the very, 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 very beginning, we were always profitable. Now, does that mean that we spent nothing before we started our business? No. In fact, I'm sure that Will and I spent thousands of dollars on coaching and courses before we made a penny. I know I did. I'll just speak for me. There was a period where I had to learn stuff first. I had to go learn marketing. I had to go learn sales. I had to go learn how to create products. I had to learn how to serve people. I had to learn how to get over my own money mindset blocks. And then I made money, or then we made money, right? But we still always prioritized from the very beginning creating a business that actually had profit from the very get-go. And that's why we're still in business 4 years later and still very happy little clams in business. Now, could we be doing more revenue? Yes, of course. There are lots of things along the way that we could probably be tripling what we're doing right now. But we have prioritized revenue or profit from the very beginning. And because of that, it allowed both Will and I to, quote unquote, leave our jobs. We're not practicing physical therapists anymore. And that only happened because we had a profitable business and we prioritized profit from the very beginning, or to be honest, net free cash flow from the beginning. But in this hierarchy of priorities, please just focus on what you actually need to focus on right now. If you're not making sales, then please go learn how to market and go learn how to sell. We've actually got lots of programs that we've done in the past on this stuff, and Will and I are just tempted to give them all away for free so that people can just go make this stuff happen. We're actually working on something with David right now where we're going to be doing a lot of free stuff, sending them out to people, because you got to learn how to do that first. Cool. Now, let's say I know how to market, I know how to sell, I'm ready to scale. Please don't do that. We see so many people who aren't profitable scale well before they're ready to. David, I know that you've seen this in the people that you've worked with and helped too. You've sent us some people, and we see this so much where people aren't profitable, and then they say, well, I just got to go hire more people, or I got to go buy this software, or I got to go dump money into ads because that's the thing that's going to do it for me. And if you're not profitable right now, trying to scale that just results in a deeper and deeper hole. It's a really crappy place to be. We end up working with a lot of people who have gotten themselves into tens of thousands of dollars of debt because they just kept following this scale mentality, because they were trying to, whether it was trying to take themselves out of a business too early, trying to scale themselves out, or they just thought that, oh, I just need this other $50,000 mastermind. It's the one thing. I know I'm not making any money yet, but I got to do this. Please don't do that to yourself. Focus on priorities. If you're at the point right now where you know how to market, you know how to sell, and you're ready or wanting to scale, this is when you focus on the profit piece. Okay. Once you get the profitability piece in place, then you get the green light to go scale the crap out of this thing. Cool. Will, any thoughts on this before we keep going?
I think I would totally agree with our pyramid here. I will say the one thing that we do catch sometimes, which if this is you and you are making sales, and you obviously we would hope that you would be figuring out if you're profitable or not, right? Like at the end of the month, you're not being able to pay yourself anything. That's one thing, but we do see sometimes there is this period between sell and profit where we have to sit down and talk with people and help them realize that the offer or their pricing is just crushing their ability to be profitable. And so I totally agree with this. It's one thing to if you're at the place where you are making sales, and you feel like, yeah, I can market, I can sell, but I'm not profitable or I'm not making as much money. That's where we sit down and actually dive in of, okay, we need to look at your offer. We need to look at your services. How much time, and we have a lot of people who are time poor. They make some money, but like they make a little bit of money and it takes all their time to make a little bit of money, and they feel profitable because they can pay themselves something. But and the big thing in there is like, we don't know how to sell with conviction to raise our prices, right? And so there's all these nuances in here. So I totally agree with this. I think there is an interesting step there between sell and profit, where you'll know real quick if you're not keeping more money, right? If you're not able to pay yourself more, that you're not as profitable as you would like to be. And so there's levels within that profit sort of quadrant or whatever trapezoid shape we're looking at.
Oh, that was specific. And I think accurate too. Nice job. All right. So, and we'll get into that very heavily today. We'll look at pricing and how we think through that and offers. Okay. So I want you to grab something to take notes with if you haven't already. We're going to dive into this whole profit planning thing together and get right to it. All right. Principle number 1, is the price right? I don't know if any of y'all watched The Price is Right. Growing up, it was like my favorite show. I love that thing. And now, funny thing is, I get to do this with businesses. We get to, people come onto our show, so to speak, and they guess at what they should be doing, money wise, and we help them see, hey, are you over? Are you under? Where are you at? So thank you, Bob Barker, for inspiring profitability talks here. So let's just revisit this idea of profit for a second. We know that there are 2 profit variables that we can control. There's number 1, how much you sell, which we would call revenue, and number 2, how much you spend, which is expenses. Today, we're primarily going to be focusing on the revenue conversation. Expenses, let's be honest, it's actually pretty easy. Most people don't do it. It's easy, but it's also easy not to do. It's slight edge style stuff right here. If you just look at your expenses and you say, do I actually need this? Is it serving the business right now? And am I getting an acceptable return on that investment? If not, I cut that expense and I don't get emotionally attached to my expenses. That's a really big thing, y'all. Don't get emotionally attached to your expenses. We have been huge ClickFunnels fans for the past 3.5, 4 years of our business. Guess what? We just cut ClickFunnels because we found things that we like better. I have no emotional attachment to it. It is a software. It's lines of code. It's pixels with color. Do I need to have an emotional attachment to specific pixel colors all arranged together? No, I don't. I need to have an emotional attachment to my family. I don't need to have an emotional attachment to a software. And I'm wearing the shirt. This is a ClickFunnels shirt. I don't have an emotional attachment to it. So you can get rid of expenses. Please get rid of expenses. But today we're actually going to talk about how much you sell. Okay. There's 3 ways to increase revenue. This is basic stuff. It's taught everywhere. We're just going to dive deep on it today. Okay. So as you are thinking through your profit planning, it's going to have to be one of these 3 things or a combination of all of them that gets us up to the point where we have increased profitability. I actually do think that one of the easiest ways to increase your profitability is to cut expenses right away. That's the first thing we do with all of our clients. Is we help them cut expenses, because that can happen immediately and it's fully within your control. Like you can snap your fingers, boom, done. Profitability goes up. That's what we did like 2 months ago, right? Our revenue didn't have to change.
And that included cutting people, right? And I think that's a really tough one. If you have staff, you have employees, right? And you feel emotionally connected to them, right? I can sympathize and understand the feeling of like, well, it's not just a software, right? We're talking about a person. And Alex and I go through this. We have part-time staff. We have people that we hire on, and we have to communicate with them and say, hey, based on where we're at with our business, I think one of the best things you can do is just be totally transparent about the situation, what's going on, like letting them know that, hey, I either hired too fast. This is totally on me. My apologies. I get that this becomes a little more difficult if you've hired a full-time employee and benefits and things are involved with severance. I think that there is you just really have to look at it though from what's in their best interest. It's not in their best interest if you can't be profitable, because they're going to want to make more money at some point. They're going to want to have better opportunities. And if you haven't created an environment to offer that down the road, I'm not going to say you're doing a disservice, but you're not going to be able to fulfill what they probably want long term. And so I think it's really important to keep in mind that you're building a ecosystem and a tool, to a vehicle to give you and anyone that works with you, it's a vehicle to help you get to where you all want to go. And if what you've built isn't designed to get there, you have to be able to say and have the humility to say, hey, I'm building the wrong car, I'm building the wrong machine. I have to tear down the pieces, or at least remove some of the pieces, so I can build it even better and stronger. And so I feel for people when that happens, but it's also something that's very real. So when we say cut expenses, we're, we even mean like, hey, you have to look at the profitability of the staff that you have, the people that you work with, which can be really tough. It moves away from just a ClickFunnels software world, right, into the human emotion, stuff like that. So if that's you, we totally feel you, but it is something that you do need to dive into. You need to look into as well.
Love that. David says, Alex Sharfin calls it releasing them back to the workplace so they can find a better job. It's a great way to put it. And this is the conversation that we have with our clients when we sit down and we look at what is your profitability, what are you bringing in, and what are you spending. And I find that the number one problem in the businesses that we're working with is they're outspending what they're truly earning, and their profit margin is not high enough. It's the number one thing that we see, and it results in them not paying themselves enough and not being able to compensate their family enough. And so often we have to have that conversation of, well, yes, I understand that it might be tough for you to let that person go or decrease their hours, but is it tougher to do that or to look at your child and tell them, I'm sorry, we're not going to have enough to pay rent this month? Like, which of those is more important to you? And it's really hard. And I'm sorry, but as a business owner, your first priority is to take care of you and your family, because it has to be. That's what will allow the business to keep going. If not, everything in the business collapses and you have to say goodbye to everyone and everything. And that is much worse in my opinion.
Yeah, it gets wild too, because, sometimes I think, and this is you, I certainly don't want to make you feel bad or triggered, but I do think it's something that we see that's a reality, which is we see people go into debt to keep people employed that they don't have the skill set and ability to get out of that situation. And it's really critical that we learn that. So when we talk about that pyramid of marketing, sales, profit, and scale, is oftentimes you have to go back to, okay, we haven't fully mastered the skill set of marketing and sales and offer design and pricing. And there's nothing that's going to, like, no one is going to come in. This is where people a lot of times hire agencies or other people to want to come in to try to solve that problem for them. And I hate to say this, because it's not what people want to hear, but like, you have to go learn how to master that skill to some degree that you can save yourself. Because if you rely on a third party, they can leave, they can go. You have to be able to know those skill sets. Doesn't mean you have to be the world's best. You don't have to be a guru. You don't need to get to a place where you're coaching and teaching people. But if you do not have those skill sets designed, you can end up in a situation where you bring on team because you have a skill set that gets you to a certain level. You feel like, oh, we're going to scale, only to find out that your skill set isn't built to help you scale. And you've built this vehicle that then feels like it's trapping you. People go into debt. They literally take business loans out to try to keep their employees there without realizing that the problem is they haven't increased their skill set to be able to move beyond where they're being stuck at. And so I just think it's really, really critical as we look at this that, yeah, sometimes like, well, if I just make more money, and we're going to dive into the ways to do that. It's like, well, you don't have the skill set to be able to figure that piece out. Like, you should have not hired that person and dove deeper into mastering the skill set of marketing, sales, and offer creation.
This is deep psychological stuff here. I didn't expect to get into today, but
it's a reality we see, right? It's a reality.
Oh yeah.
It's like I can think of a few people who we know have taken business loans out to try to keep their employees because they feel so guilty to have to keep their employees. And it's like, well, now that guilt's going to take up space in your life that you aren't going to feel freed up to go learn the marketing and sales and offer stuff that you need to learn. And it just creates this vicious cycle, right? We see, and it becomes a game of, then you start leveraging credit, like personal credit and all this stuff. And it becomes just this deep wormhole that becomes really hard to get out of.
Right. So as we come to the realities of business ownership here, let's look at, okay, well, what do I do to actually increase my revenue then? Okay, so there's these three things: raising prices, selling to more customers, or selling more to current customers. Okay. So raising prices, let's talk about this for a minute. We're going to talk about each of these in depth here. Raising prices, I think of as offer design. Okay. In every offer, you have to factor in these costs. And there's one that I didn't even put in here, which is terrible because it's the biggest one. But there's a cost to market. There's a cost to sell. There's a cost to deliver. There's a cost to manage. And there's profit. And then the one that I didn't even put in here is taxes. Like, come on, Alex, this is what you do all day and you forget taxes. But these are the actual costs that must be baked into your offer. And right now you might be thinking, Alex, I'm a solopreneur. I don't employ people, so there's no cost to deliver. I don't employ salespeople. I don't give them a commission, so there's no cost to sell. And all my stuff is organic, so there's no cost to market. And I don't have a cost to manage because it's just a one-man show or one-woman show. And cool, yeah, I need some profit and taxes. Okay, yeah, whatever. Well, look, the cost is going to be your time then. And my question is, do you want to get paid for your time in the business, or are you okay just doing a bunch of stuff for free? So many people early on, and this is aimed more at the people who are in the early phases of the business. If you're in the probably 0 to maybe we'll call it 10K a month range in your business, I really want to encourage you to look at how can I make sure that I'm charging enough to really honor each of these costs within my offer. Because a lot of times you just look at it and say, it's only going to take me, 3 hours a month to fulfill for this client. Well, are you factoring in the cost that you had to spend to go market, to sell, and all the overhead as well, and then still factoring in profit and taxes? Because Alex should have put that there big at the bottom. If you haven't factored that stuff in, you're probably not charging enough. And we see that with a lot of people. And there's this guilt around charging higher prices. I remember, Will, when we had one of our coaches tell us, you guys need to put together a $5,000 offer. And I was like, I can't do that. I feel so terrible. I did not feel valuable enough to charge $5,000 for something. And I remember it was far less an offer design thing and far more an internal value thing for me early on. I don't know if it was for you, Will, but early on, it's like, I am not worthy of making $5,000. Nobody would feel like I am worth, giving that much to. And I think we really got to look at, okay, there's the emotional side of that I think you really need to get over. But then there's also the logistics side of it. Business is expensive. You need to charge a lot in order to stay in business. And you cannot scale something that doesn't have a significant profit margin built in, because guess what? As you scale your offer, you're going to need to have marketing budget built into an offer. You're going to need to have potentially sales people built into your offer. You're going to need to have delivery built into your offer. Or do you just want to keep doing everything in your business for the rest of eternity? Because if you don't offer at high enough prices, you are literally offering yourself out of the ability to scale, period. Because you're always going to have to do all the marketing yourself using your time. You're always going to have to sell it yourself. You're always going to have to deliver everything yourself. You're always going to have to manage it yourself, still try to take profit, and pay taxes. That is a terrible recipe. And I would not wish that on anyone, except out of a small window of time when we know that we're all going to have to do everything in our business, right? But we certainly don't want to stay there. So we want to plan for growth. We want to fit in growth into our offers. So you have to raise prices. And let's be honest, the price of everything is going up right now. Everything. If you think, I'll just be a happy little clam and I'll just charge the same price that I charged 3 years ago. Well, guess what? Do you know how much more expensive life has gotten in the past 2 years? Oh, it's crazy. It is crazy. Housing alone, y'all. Like, look at how housing prices without feeling are like, oh yeah, we're going up. Yep, we'll go up 20, 30%. Sure. And you sit here, I can't raise prices. Please value yourself. Recognize the fact that you have to build in all of these costs. Will, any thoughts here before we move on to getting more customers?
Yeah. First thing is, if you have any of those emotions, I think it's normal. The second thing is, you want to ask yourself, well, how can I add more value into what I'm offering? Right. And that's the first thing. It's not, I think so many people think, well, just raise your prices to raise your prices. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, yes, logistically, to stay profitable, you may need to raise your prices, but more importantly, how can you add value to what you do? And value comes in so many forms. And this is where, if you're, let's say, I know we work with a lot of people in healthcare, and you're like, well, how can I add more value to like health? It's a health related thing. Well, can you be the fastest at responding? Can you be the one who's open on hours that other people aren't open? Can you be willing to go see people in their home when other people will only allow them to come to their office or clinic? How can you add more value in that sets you apart from the market? And it's really, really critical. It doesn't mean you have to that doesn't mean they have to be expensive things either. It doesn't mean it has to be a higher expense. You just find creative ways to add value. Maybe your customer service is far and above beyond, like the experience going in there is just so different. And that justifies, like we all pay, or not all, but a lot of us will go to somewhere like Starbucks in a new city because it's Starbucks and you've been there before, and that it's clean, that they like have a process and you've had it before. Right. And people will pay $4 extra for a coffee compared to the place that they don't know. And it's because they've added that experiential value, right? It's not, even now you might be like, it's not that much different, but at some point you felt like, well, it's the green logos and the music, and it's like this cool thing, but it's added value to you in some way that you see that as worth paying more for it. And there's a trust factor there over time. The second thing I was going to bring up about this is, not only just adding value, but also, what was I going to say here? Totally skipped it. I had something else I was going to say on top of adding value. I totally forgot about it. But anyways, first thing is, how can you add more value? It'll make you feel better about raising your prices. Oh, here's what it is. Here's the other thing I see a lot that happens, which is, well, I can't raise my prices because my competitors are all within a certain range over here. Let's say they charge $100 to $150 an hour. If I were to go to like $250 or $300, no one would come work with me because they have my competitors. I'll just tell you that there is no good rational reason to go anywhere near your competitors' pricing, because most people go out of business. Just think about the logic of this. Most people go out of business. Most businesses do not end up succeeding. If we know that the more than half, like the average amount of businesses that don't make it, or we know that over a half of businesses that start don't make it, why would we mimic and copy what other businesses are doing if most of them aren't going to make it, right? And so you think like, well, I have to charge, like, this is what my market's doing. They're charging within this range and doing this. Most of them are going to go broke. Most of them are living off business debt or credit debt that you don't know about. And they're doing the same struggle. So if that's ever you, please like ask yourself, right? It's a very simple thing with like investing, right? You don't buy when things are going crazy up. You buy when it's down. You do the opposite of what the average person does, and that's how you win, right? And so in this world, if you're looking at, well, I couldn't raise my prices. So many other people only charge like this range. That's what people are willing to pay for in my market. No, that's what people have accepted to pay in your market because nobody else is willing to create a service and an offer and an experience that justifies having a higher price that actually allows you to be profitable. People feel happy, and you get to walk home with actual money that you can do this. And this is I don't know if it's controversial. We talk about this a lot. People are like, well, I want to serve everyone. And I want to be affordable for everyone. Cool. Raise your prices, become profitable, save your profit, and go open something like a free clinic or an NGO, or go offer a nonprofit, or heck, you could have more time to go help people for free. And here's the crazy thing I tell people a lot is you will find out if you actually wanted to help and serve those people or not, because you have all the time in the world. And if you don't do it then you never really did it. And it was just all for your own ego and saying it. And I think that's really powerful if you can get to that place. So those are some things when it comes to like pricing, raising your prices, that are really, really powerful for, like, I think we hold ourselves back of like, well, I want to be affordable to everyone. Like, make profit, save your money, be able to go do whatever you want, and then go help those people. And you're not going to feel resentful or bitter that most of them can't pay you anyways.
Well, dang, that was good. um, Corey and JoJo said, Myron Golden says, if you're the best, people won't expect you to be the cheapest. And if you're the cheapest, people won't expect you to be the best. Right. I think it goes to who are the people that you want to be working with at this stage in your business. And if you're at the early stage of your business, look at how Elon Musk ran Tesla. Did he say, I want to have the car that everyone can afford? No, he said, we're going to completely change the world. And I'm going to have the most incredible electric car you've ever seen. It's going to cost like 80 grand. And everyone was like, no one can afford Teslas. That's crazy. And he said, yeah, but some people can. And those who can value it. Oh, then guess what? As we get more and more profitable, now we can make a car that only costs 50 grand. Oh, guess what? Now we're going to have a car that costs 30 grand. Now that we're so much bigger, now we can do it. Work with the cream of the crop at the top who value you at that level. And then, like Will says, then you're going to see, what do you do next? If you have the time to do it, then how do you help people? I love it. Okay, let's move on to selling to more customers. This is a marketing problem, okay? So if this last one was an offer design problem, second one is a marketing problem, okay? So I think that too many people get way too watered down in their marketing, meaning I think they try to attack way too many platforms all at once. And they're new, and in the first stages of your business, you think, well, I need to be on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn and TikTok and YouTube and, did I say Twitter? Yeah, you need to be on all the platforms because that's where all the people are at. And guess what? You don't get good enough at any of them to actually stand out, and you put the same content on every single one. And if any of you are on Instagram and Facebook, can you just tell me, is the way that the content works on those platforms the exact same? Like, does the same post on Facebook work on Instagram? No.
Yes.
Does a post on YouTube act the same as as a post on Facebook? No. Content is different on each channel. And in order to learn what content works on one channel, it takes a lot of reps into one. And so early on in the business, I think that this should be the first question you should be asking yourself. How can I go deeper on whatever marketing channel is working best for me right now? If you're just starting off and you don't know, well, then go talk to someone who does. Look at what's already working in the market that you want to go to and go to that channel. Like, don't complicate it. Go find what's working and go to that channel. But I think that that's the first question we have to ask is how can I just go deeper on what's working best right now? If you're getting most of your clients through one channel and you are under 10K a month, I think there is no reason for you to say, oh, it's time to diversify. I got to go do this thing. It's like, no, you're making 10K a month. Go double or triple that before ever even thinking about getting on another platform. It's just not going to make sense if it's working for you. If it's not working for you, okay, you got to figure that out. We're not here to talk about marketing channels and strategies. We're here to look at how do I make more money so that I can have higher profits. And the selling to more customers, I think the easiest way to do it is how can I go deeper on that marketing channel that's already working best? The second question is, and I think that this is very dependent on how much money you're making. If you aren't making at least, I'm just going to throw out numbers, at least 10K a month, but have like significant amounts of discretionary spending in the business to be able to go pay for things on like Facebook ads or YouTube ads, you just shouldn't be worried about it yet. There's enough organic marketing that you can do to go make that money so that you can afford ads, no sweat. Will, you run a lot of ads for people. Let me just ask you, if a client comes to you and they say, this is my last $500 and I really, really need this to work. I have to have this $500 work for me on Facebook ads. Would you take them on as a client?
Nope. Not at all. And yeah, it's just not the best use of $500. I mean, I would say if there were like a $50 course that you could go master the skill, sure, master the skill, and then go spend the $450 left over and test your skill. But I think, yeah, long story short with this slide is like, look, if you're like doing less than 5 to 10K a month and you're here and you're worried about profit, you need to be worried about marketing and sales. I think that's really at the end of it.
Yep, absolutely. So then this last one that I think for a lot of people, they get really worked up on early on, and then they forget about it, and then they get worked up about it again. This is how it went for Will and I. To be honest, the first 3/4 of our business, 95% of the money came from first-time sales or like one-time sales. We didn't know about and didn't know how to structure ongoing interactions with clients. We just didn't know. And to be honest, I think it was probably the right move to just focus on how can I market and sell. Now, could we have done it earlier? Yeah, I'm sure we could have. But also, we just got good first at, can I just make sales in mass? Learn marketing and sales. Then it makes sense to start looking at retention. What could I offer my current customers to get or keep them buying more from me? Now, am I saying that you shouldn't worry about this till you've made $500,000? No, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that this isn't usually the very first thing that we worry about. The first thing is, can I get a good front end offer that I can market and sell? But then after that, hey, what could I offer my current customers to get or keep them buying more from me? Okay. I want to just look real quick at an example of this. So let's say you're a coach and you have a $5,000 offer. So I just want to see, okay, what would happen if one sale brings you $5,000 right now? Then what would happen if 30%, let's just say only 30% of your clients stuck with you for an extra 6 months, meaning they kept buying from you for an extra 6 months at $1,000 a month. So you had some sort of ongoing offer. Let's just look at the math of that real quick. Sorry, guys, math. If you don't have a continuity offer, meaning you don't have some offer to keep going with them, great. You sell $5,000 to 10 people. That's $50,000 there on the left. If you did have a continuity offer, there's, you get your $5,000 times 10 clients, you get your $50,000. And then 3 of them, that 30%, stay with you for just 6 months. That's an extra $18,000, which brings our total up to $68,000. That's a 30% increase in revenue with almost zero additional cost to market and sell. And I think that we highly underestimate the amount of time that it takes to market and sell things, both from a time and money standpoint. So if we could increase your revenue by 30%, and I think this is grossly underestimating, because I think that if you are good at what you do, you should be able to get clients to stay with you for a long time. We have clients who've been with us for 3.5 years. One of them's having a baby. She's due tomorrow. I'm so excited for her. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. And that guys, I just can't tell you how fun that side of things is, to when you can get to the point that people want to keep working with you and keep working with you and keep working with you, and you get to be part of that journey for that kind of time. It's so much fun versus just one-off sales all the time. We had only done with a very small portion of our clients. We only had just this little portion that we could even make some kind of ongoing offer. And as we changed how our model works, it's made our profitability so much better because we don't have to market and sell so much anymore to make the same amount of money. Now we can keep marketing and selling to get front end sales, but it just makes life so much better. Shout out to, we've had some amazing help along the way with this, with figuring out retention models and figuring out how to keep selling. This is not something that we figured out on our own. Again, this is why we kept paying for coaching all along the way. Yep. And we didn't just keep paying for coaching to solve old problems. We paid for coaching to solve the next problem in our business, right? This is how it should work. Will, any thoughts here on this before we wrap up this section of things?
Heck yeah. My thing is those 3 people just paid for your tax bill for the entire year. Like, check that out. Even at your new revenue level, let's just say we were taking out 30% for taxes, which is on the very high side, but let's just say 30%. They just covered it, right? They just covered that entire tax bill for yourself by just keeping those 3 people on at $1,000 a month for 6 months. You just covered your entire tax bill. Like, how cool is that? And honestly, in this scenario, based on those revenue numbers, depending on expenses, and honestly, it'd be even way above that because I'm assuming there'd be some expenses. So profit, you're paying tax on profit, which would be even lower. But that way to say, like, happy tax bill and Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays, like on top of that, by just keeping 3 people on for 6 months at a fraction of what they paid.
I love it. So I want you to think about this for right now in your business. And I want you to answer this in the comments. What do you think your next focus really is in terms of increasing your profitability? Do you think it's raising prices, meaning offer design? Do you think it's selling to more customers, marketing? Or do you think it's selling more to current customers, retention? And I'll just say here, if you don't have a ton of customers, then selling to more customers is probably your problem. Like, we just need to make more sales, period. If you're making sales, but you don't feel like you're very profitable, then you probably need to raise prices. And if you feel like, hey, I've got decent prices on the front end, because if we're not profitable on the front end, there's no way that I'm going to tell you, yeah, go keep making more sales of something that's not profitable. That's a recipe for lots of disaster. But if it's profitable and you're able to make a decent amount of sales, then it totally makes sense to go focus on retention and upsells, right? What do you think, number one, number two, or number three, which one is your next focus? Put it in the chat right now, or if you're sitting here on the replay, I want you to think through it right now, mentally write it down. What is my next focus in terms of increasing profitability? Because we talk about profitability and profit planning, and we get all sorts of fluffy numbers, and it's like, hey, I want to increase my profitability by 10%. Great, what does that mean? What are you actually going to do in order to make that happen? You're going to raise prices, you're going to sell to more customers, we're going to sell more to current customers. Ideally, we're doing a mix of all three, right? But this is why I said, what is your next focus? Cool. We've got a lot of comments coming in here. 3, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. Cool. So lots of 2s and 3s.
I would even look at I would look at it from almost like if we structured these differently in the sense that I wouldn't even raise prices. You know what I mean? Like we'd raise prices once you have demand of people actually wanting to work with you, right? So if you're here oh, I'm going to raise my prices first. It's like, if you don't even have people who are yeah, I think I'm interested in working with you. That's got to be a priority. Then you max out on that. And actually retention of those people would be priority. Then you raise your prices of being able to say, cool, I'm in demand, proven my system, people get results. Hopefully if you're here, you're far beyond those initial stages, but if not, that's where you need to be focusing your attention.
Love it. Yeah, this order is totally arbitrary as to how I thought about it. I was up in the middle of the night last night thinking through, because couldn't sleep, head cold, all this stuff. And I was like, oh, this is exactly what we need to talk about. So this was the 2 a.m. in the morning, that's right, we got to talk through this. So thank you, Will, for clarifying, because it's totally right.
Somebody thought it was a flow. I wanted them to think about
that was
maybe we need to prioritize.
Awesome clarification. All right, these next two principles are going to be significantly shorter because, to be honest, I think that they're not as important as the first two. I just think that we have to get as the first one. So we're just going to talk briefly about profitable hiring. And Will and I are not the hiring experts. I really want to make that clear. We've done plenty of hiring in our business to a profitable degree. And so that's, I think, the stamp of, okay, yeah, we can talk about this. I don't see ourselves as hiring experts at all. I just want to give you, from our experience now, we've done $1 million at 63%, whatever profitability. How have we thought through hiring decisions? Okay. And I think it's so funny, this Napoleon Dynamite meme here. If you hire me, all your dreams will come true. I think that sometimes there's this myth that, oh, I just need to hire and all my problems get solved. And I think that can be true, but a lot of times it's not. And so I want to give you the guiding principles for how you should be making these hiring decisions. Okay. Hiring must give you one of these three things. Okay. One, more time. 2, more money, or 3, both. That's it. It's either giving you more time or more money or both. That's really the purpose of hiring. Okay. And so when we look at how does hiring give me more time? Well, if you're doing something right now that somebody else could do, and let's say the value of your time in the business, I don't know, let's pick an arbitrary number. Let's say, you're worth $100 an hour to your business. If you're to kind of break down how much do you make versus the time you spend in the business, say you're worth about $100 an hour, and you could go hire someone at, say, $20 an hour to do some similar tasks, or to do some of the tasks and take them off your plate. And then you have more time to go spend on higher dollar per hour things. Then that makes total sense, where it's hey, it's giving me more time, and not just time to sit back and relax and oh, no, I'm not going to do anything, but time to go do more profitable things in your business. Great. Then that might make sense. We're going to look at some examples here in a minute. That's more time. More money is, hey, maybe it makes sense to go hire someone to, Will, to go hire someone to do Facebook ads for you. And it's not something you're really doing, but you've got this extra money, and you're hey, Will, or hey, David, I'm ready to run ads, and I know that it's going to make me an ROI. I'm going to get a 2-to-1 return on my money over the next couple of months as I get through this. Cool. I'm hiring for more money. Maybe you're thinking about this with the software too, right? Same thing. Is this a more time or a more money play? Most of the time for softwares and tools, it's a more time play. Sometimes the play is both. It gives me back time and it's profitable. Ooh, that's the holy grail right there. There's some important things to understand though about this. And I think that hiring gets really glamorized, especially if you're in the online coaching space. I think that there's a lot of glamorization around this that happens, and people don't understand what it's actually like hiring, especially if you're in the early phases of the business. So here's my favorite question to ask before hiring for time. What's the lowest value thing that I currently spend time on in my business? I want to repeat that. What's the lowest value thing that I currently spend time on in my business? I want you to think about that for a minute. If you haven't done this for a while, it's a really valuable thing to take a time audit. And it doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm going to sit down for 2 days and write down every 15 minutes exactly what I do. You could do that. I'll be honest, I never have. I've tried before and I can never stick with it long enough. It's super painful and I just can't do it. But I can think through, okay, over the past week, what have I actually spent time on that I know it's a low value thing. And by low value, I don't mean that it doesn't add value to the business, just low value relative to your skill set. So for example, I know that I am really good at crunching numbers and going to look at how much revenue and how much expense did we have in the business. I know that I'm great at that. It's one of my things that I've developed over time. But it's not a high value skill because somebody else can go do it at a much lower price than my time is worth. So I could go do it, or I could go hire a bookkeeper to do it for me. And it could save me the hour and a half, whatever that I would spend doing that. And I could go spend that time marketing or selling or delivering for our clients instead, which is a much higher value thing. And the way that I like to look at this, the most easy answer is, what things do I do in the business that do not generate revenue? Does counting my money generate revenue? No, it's counting the revenue. It doesn't generate revenue. Does it help me make better decisions? Sure. But what helps me generate revenue? Well, marketing and selling and delivering for my clients generates revenue. Those are the things that actually make money come in. Okay, so anything that's not that should probably be delegated, right? Will, thoughts here before we get to the next little part on deciding what to hire for when we're looking at how do we take time off our plates?
I think you hit the nail on the head.
Okay, so then this one, my favorite question to ask before hiring for money. Will this hire generate at least a 3x return for the business? And I think that this is a really hard thing to calculate. By the way, I'm totally pulling this number from really smart people who are way smarter than me on hiring. I think that this is not something that Will and I have done either. And as we've looked at, well, I guess we kind of have. We've probably only ever hired for time when I think about it. Well, I don't think that we've ever necessarily hired for maybe some of the lead gen agencies that we've hired before in the past for things. It's like, hey, what's my ROI on this? So we've done some of this, but not employees, more like hiring contractors or one-time services. But I want you to think, hey, can I generate a return on my investment? Really smart people tell me that it should be a 3x return on that my employees should generate 3 times what I'm paying them. But I think it's just good to be cognizant of what is an expected return. If I'm a physical therapist and I'm hiring for money, meaning I'm hiring a new therapist to come into my clinic, and I'm looking at, okay, I'm going to hire this therapist at, let's say, $60,000 a year. Oh, that's low. What in Utah for new grads, it's not. I'm going to hire a therapist at $60K a year, new therapist out of school, and they're going to be able to see 10 patients a week, whatever, 10 patients a day. I don't care. Y'all figure out your own math. But if they're going to see this many patients a week, how much are they going to generate for the practice, for the clinic, right? That's how I want to think through the hiring for money equation. What is my actual return going to be? Knowing that they're not going to generate that amount right off the bat. And that's, I think, sort of the next, we'll hit that in just a minute. But I think that's a really important caveat, is that they're not going to generate money right away, generally, because there's going to be an onboarding time. There's going to be a filling up their schedule time if we're looking at hiring a therapist, for example, right? And so that factors into how we make the decision about when it's time to hire, which we'll look at in just a minute. I want to ask you right now in the comments, have you put your answer here? What's the lowest value thing that you currently spend your time on in your business? As you think through that question that we talked about a minute ago, thinking about what's the lowest value thing that you spend your time on. Maybe it's editing videos. Maybe it's uploading your podcast. Maybe it's counting your money every month. Maybe, think of the things that, are they valuable to the business? Sure. But I'm looking at lowest value thing that you're doing right now that you could hire out if you were to look at it. Now, you might not know how to hire it out yet. It's fine. Not asking that. I'm just looking at if you were to really be honest and evaluate, what are you spending time on that is probably at the bottom of the totem pole, so to speak? What is it? Re-explaining things to clients because they don't listen the first time. Okay, so delivery, right? That's a delivery thing. So can I hire that out? Well, potentially. Or how can I create an asset that helps to take care of that the first time, right? Or how can I improve my process so that expectations are set ahead of time, right? So that might not be a direct hiring question, but I totally get the sentiment there. I want to think about what I'm doing. Well, I'm going to ask you too. Same thing for you. We're asking people to share their answers, so I think we should both too. Thinking about what's the lowest value thing that I spend my time on in the business, and I would say, right? Oh man, now I'm putting myself on the spot. Will, do you have one off the top of your head as you're thinking about what's the lowest value thing that you spend your time on?
Yeah, I think for me, it's going and anytime I have to find a resource for a client that messages us, like super low value of time, something that somebody else could easily point them to, could help them out with, like that takes up time. I think, yeah, some of the other really low value stuff are even me still being in the weeds of doing manual prospecting sometimes, of sending out messages when that could be hired out, or I could find automation to take care of that.
Yep. I love it. I'll tell you one of the things that we had been doing. I just solved it barely, but scheduling with clients and like, hey, you need to schedule this call. Now, I still do a little bit of that, but I've automated it a lot and maybe just changed. I mean, Will and I actually hired someone to help us with this about 6 months ago because it was getting so bad. We had so many clients scheduling calls that it was just like, I can't keep up with it and sending out messages all the time. And so sometimes, Kristen, like you mentioned, sometimes it's not a hire, it's a process change, right? And so Will and I hired that out, and now we've changed our process to deal with that. So now at the end of client calls, just, hey, when's our next call going to be? Great, let's hammer it in. Cool, it takes me 2 seconds, and I do it before the end of the call. Cool. So sometimes these changes happen from hiring. Sometimes they happen from actual like processes and how we're acting in our business. LinkedIn prospecting, says David. Yeah. So I think that it's just a good way to look at what's the next thing that I need to take off my plate. Cool. I think that this is really important when you look at being ready for the next hire. And I think you just need to be realistic in how long is it going to take that hire to get up to the productivity level that you expect them to be at. And so I think this is important. Do I have the financial reserves in my business or profit buffer in my business to allow my hire time to become profitable? And I think it's probably going to take 1 to 2 months. When we look at our hires, the first 1 month has always been onboarding, getting them rolling, team meetings to help them get on board with what the mission is and what they're doing and like ingraining culture and all this stuff. The first month is really like, are they going to be helpful? Yeah, of course. But they're definitely not going to be at their peak capacity yet until 1, maybe 2 months in. And so this is the rule that I've used. Other people might bash me over the head for this, but do I feel like I've got the finances in the business to have their salary going out for at least a month without the quote unquote return coming back, either in time or money? If I don't have that, if times are really, really tight, I maybe shouldn't hire. I should maybe go make a marketing push, get another couple of clients to have the buffer to do that. And I say this because I've just seen way too many people get instructed to go hire and scale themselves out of the business without having the profit in place. And that ends in a really dangerous long-term spiral to where you don't have profitability and you're scaling unprofitable. Do not scale unprofitable. Don't hire until you have the profitability there. Cool? Oh yeah, there it is. Don't scale a non-profitable business. Screenshot that if you want. I've just seen way too many people go this route of like, I need systems and hiring, and that's what's going to help me scale. It's like, yeah, that's going to help you scale, but you're not profitable. You are not profitable. This is where we end up with businesses making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars without actually taking anything home. And this brings us full circle to what we talked about at the beginning. Do you want $1 million business with $100,000 in profit? Or do you want a $300,000 business with $200K profit? Are you chasing revenue and chasing being taken out of the business, or are you pursuing actually getting paid? And that's why net free cash flow, what we talked about earlier, what you're actually getting paid as a business owner after reinvesting in the business, that's what we're measuring our success by. It changes completely how we play the game. If we know what the end goal is net free cash flow. The end goal is me getting paid as an owner after I'm able to reinvest in the business and I still have money left over. That's success. That's winning in the business. Winning in the business is not just scaling yourself out of your job, but not being able to pay yourself. Winning in the business is not just making a ton of revenue so that you can have a 2 Comma Club award. Winning in the business is not just making bank so that you can hire lots of people and feel great about how big your team is. That is not what winning in business looks like. It might for some until they realize that that is absolutely unsustainable and everyone else who's doing that is freaked out in the background. Don't do that. Okay, last thing here. Principle number 3, what's your profit plan? Now that we've talked about all this stuff, let's work on the plan. I think this is so funny, working on my 5-year plan. By the way, y'all, I have never had a 5-year plan that's like actually come to fruition. I can't do 5-year timelines. We're not going to encourage you to either. But I do want you to look at, okay, over the next year, what do I think might be possible for me? I really even struggle with year planning, to be honest. I'm much more of like a 90-day timeline kind of guy. It's like, what are the things that I know I can go influence over the next 90 days? I like to have some major life outcomes in the next year that I feel like I can influence and some major directions that I want to go over the next 5 years. But let's look at just profit planning wise. What can I actually expect to accomplish in 2022 or over the next year? Here's my recommendation. First, we have to get clear on what our current profitability is. If we don't know that, there's no way that we can say, yes, let's hit the pedal to the metal and go scale this crap. Okay? So get clear on current profitability. This is why I had that formula at the beginning, right? How much revenue are you making? What are your expenses? What's your revenue that's left over? And then as a percentage of your revenue, what does that look like? So I mentioned that we're at 63% revenue. That's actually really high. It's because we're an online business. Brick and mortar businesses are going to be a little bit lower for sure. And gosh, if you run a grocery store, their profit margins so razor thin, right? Amazon, their profit margins are more thin. But that's the beauty of knowing where you're at, right? Is you can give yourself a measure. Where am I at? If I'm doing terrible, cool, I need to change my profitability first. If I'm doing great, I can put pedal to the metal, okay? So get clear on your current profitability. Next, I want you to identify what the biggest bottleneck in the business is. Is it over here on the pyramid? Is it marketing? Am I just not getting in front of enough people? Is it selling? Is it making sure that my stuff is profitable? Or is it now a scaling question? What's my current limiting factor to where I can take off if I solve it? And then we map out a battle plan. And we're going to talk about a couple battle plans here for different ranges of income in just a minute. We'll end with this here. So we're going to go back and forth just a little bit and map out what a battle plan might be for 0 to 5K, 5 to 20K, and 20K plus. This is per month, okay, revenue per month. If you're 0 to 5K, Will already alluded to this. If you're in that 0 to 5K a month range, what do you think your focus should be? Just put it in the comments right now. If you're 0 to 5K, what do you think the focus should be right now? Put it in the comments. Let's see if you get this right. A little pop quiz time here. What do you think the main thing is that you should be focusing on if you're 0 to 5K a month? Should we be focusing on hiring? Should we be focusing on Facebook ads? Should we be focusing on YouTube ads? Should we be focusing on I don't know, whatever shiny object strategy you want? Kristen nailed it. More clients and refining offers. Yep. Marketing and selling, right? Like that's my profit plan over the next 3 months. And certainly over the next year, if I'm at 0 to 5K, how do I go get more clients, right? If I'm in the 5 to 20K a month range, then I look at what's my battle plan? What's my profit plan? Okay, well, first, this is where we start to look at, am I truly profitable? 0 to 5K, you got to make sales, right? Like we just have to make sales first. 5 to 20K, I need to really start looking at, okay, I'm making these sales. Am I profitable as I deliver on this over time? Because we have people who make big old sales, and then they realize, gosh, it takes a ton of team for me to deliver on this. I'm not profitable. Ooh, that gets really, really painful, right? If you have scaled yourself out of a job maybe, and you're making all this money, but you're not profitable, why in the world would we say, yeah, just keep going and make more sales. Go on ahead, go make more sales. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to stop. We're going to hit reset a little bit. And we're going to say, no, let's go revise our offer, and let's go make sure that we're actually profitable. So I think that this 5 to 20K range is where we really start focusing on the profitability side of the business, and really looking into how can I make sure that my marketing and sales budget, wherever that ends up being in that range, that it's making sense for me with what I'm charging. Let me make sure that I'm charging high enough prices so that I can maybe start to have some help on the delivery side. If I'm a brick and mortar business, right, this is the stage where you're starting to look at hiring front desk. Maybe you're starting to look at hiring your first treating PT, right? All these things where we're really starting to look at, okay, my time becomes more and more valuable, so I can start hiring to solve time issues. 5 to 20K, so many of you are in this range, and I think that a lot of people don't ever look at the profitability until they're in the 20K plus range. I know it because it's the majority of our clients who come to us, they're in that 20K plus range, but they realize that they've created a monster. And they're like, hey, I'm really trying to scale this, but I realize it's not actually as profitable as it needs to be. I realize that my personal finances, even though I'm bringing home 20K a month, my personal finances don't look any better. In fact, it's getting worse. It's because they didn't focus on profitability early enough. Okay. And then 20K plus, if you're cruising past that and you don't feel like you were making a crap ton of money at this point, like you really need to address profitability ASAP. But then it's starting to look at, cool, how do I scale this thing, right? How am I hiring for to take massive time off my plate? How am I really starting to learn or get good at hiring for advertising and starting to pump some of that money in so that this thing can take off? Will, I'm going to turn it over to you for a minute and ask you what you would be focusing on in the 0 to 5K, 5K to 20, 20K plus range.
Yeah, I think 0 to 20K for sure, marketing and sales, just 100% of the time outside of figuring out, because here's the deal. What I mean by this is until you're doing it consistently, then you still have a marketing and sales problem. Once you've done this, let's say 4, 5, 6 months in a row, great. Then I'd say you should look at profit and continue to dive deeper into profit. Problem is we get people that hit 7K a month for 1 month and think I'm at 7K a month. And then the next month they make $2,000 or they have a launch of something, they do $25,000. I'm in the 20K a month range. And then the next month they make $2,000 and you haven't cracked a predictable marketing and sales strategy. So until you're at, to me, what 20,000 a month consistently tells me is you've cracked some type of predictable marketing and sales, assuming that it's within reason of your profit. So yes, obviously you want to look at profit. I think so many people just, they think that like there's some magic thing to do it. It's like, look, you have to find predictable marketing and sales strategies to book people. Alex and I, we're in the same boat at times as well, of like continue to find that predictable marketing strategy. It's going to lead to predictable client acquisition. And so I really think until you're doing it consistently, that 0 to 20K a month is marketing and sales and continuing to mastering that skill set. Alex Hormozi, who Alex brought up earlier, talks about most businesses, if they're under $500,000 a year, the only thing they should be focused on is client acquisition. Obviously client acquisition at a profitable rate. So you do want to look at it, but in terms of like the bulk of what you're doing, because here's the deal, if you ever want to hire someone to get out, especially if they're going to do for time, meaning they're going to take over your services, they're going to do fulfillment, you better have people for them to be able to fulfill, right? To be able to do that. Otherwise, you're just bringing on a really expensive placeholder, right? And so it's really, really important that I think so many people don't want to become masters at marketing and selling. Well, can I just hire somebody to do the marketing for me? Can I hire a VA? Well, that VA is only as capable as that VA. Like they don't run your business. And honestly, as a marketer myself, if someone's like, hey, can you do predictable lead gen for me? And I think, well, can you give me half of your business? Because it's going to die without it. So like, that's how I actually look at it. Like, were you willing to give me a 50-50 split of your business? Because where's it going to go from here if we don't figure that piece out? And that's just the biggest thing I can tell people is, and we're talking as if you're a beginner. We know a lot of people are in that 0 to 20K a month range. And so that's where it's just super important. But yeah, that's just my take on it. 20K and above. Yeah, that 20K a month and above is absolutely looking at profitability and how do you keep profit while bringing people on, which is sort of the next evolution of our business as well.
Love it. Cool, y'all. We're going to finish off with this. I hope this has been helpful today. I would love to know what has your biggest insight been today as you've sat here and thought through this. I'd love to hear biggest insight as we talked about profitability. We hit a lot of things here. If we look at profitability, we talked net free cash flow, we talked profit margins, we talked understanding how much you're actually keeping. What else did we talk? We talked about sort of the business growth priorities, talked about pricing, how to establish how much you're going to charge, how to increase revenue, the 3 different ways. We talked about profitable hiring and figuring out hiring for time versus hiring for money. And then finally, bringing those all together to create a profit battle plan for you based off where you're at. I would love to know what's the biggest takeaway that y'all had from this. David says retention, retention, retention. I think it's interesting how quickly that changes profitability, right? When you look at that, it's like, dang, that makes a big difference. And it magnifies all of the marketing and sales efforts that you're making on the front end, right? Jennifer says, it made me more comfortable with the idea of profitability and business priorities in relation to profit. Love it. Glad to hear it. Super glad to hear it. So as we finish up here, we'll end with a big old Q&A. We've left about half hour of time, 25 minutes or so of time for that. Just wanted to give you a quick invitation here. If you feel like this stuff was really helpful for you and you want us to help you set up your business financial systems, actually sit down together with you, look at your profitability, come up with a personalized plan, and get you feeling really solid about where you're at financially so that you can move into that scalability and really growing the business with certainty around your finances, then this is what it would look like. It's called CEO Finance Academy, and it's a hands-on business finance planning and system setup program. So we actually get in the weeds with you together, and we would sit down and say, hey, where are you at profitability-wise? How much do we need to be bringing in to the business in order to get your take-home targets, that net free cash flow target? We're actually going to set those targets together. If you don't know how much you should be allowing yourself to take home, great, we're going to figure that out. If you don't know how profitable you are, we're going to figure that out. If you have no clue about your expenses and your revenue, we're going to kick you in the butt and help you get on top of that. This is not a cheap course. This is a premium one-on-one program that we're going to walk through this stuff together. It's 3 months of one-on-one CEO mentorship. We actually just bumped it up to 4 months because I feel like it's going to take that time to ingrain the habits. We're going to get this complete financial system in place, and we really feel like it's best for those at a minimum. You should be at about $5,000 a month or more to get in. And the reason being, if you're under that, you just got to go focus on making more sales. That's kind of the baseline. We might even get on a call together and decide, hey, you're not really ready for this yet. Go make more sales. And we're happy to send you resources for where to focus on that. If you're above that 5K a month mark, you're like, I really know that I don't have my crap together. I wouldn't even know how to pull my numbers together. Maybe I'm hiring a bookkeeper and an accountant, but I don't understand any of it, and it's still a mess, and I don't feel like I've got a handle on my finances. That's what CEO Finance Academy is all about. And if you want access to seeing what this would look like, what you can do right now is you can either just throw up like a Deets, just say Deets in the comments right now, and we'll reach out to you. Or you can just shoot us an email. Probably just send me one personally, alex@healthyfunnel.com, or reach out to either Will or myself on Facebook. You probably found us there, or through LinkedIn if you found Will or I through there. Wherever you found us, reach out and say, hey, let's hop on a call and see if this is a fit for you. We tell most people no, to be honest, because we're really specific with who we work with, and we have really tight qualifications for what makes sense, because we only work with people that we feel like we can make a real dent in their business and in their long-term wealth growth. So that's the quick, hey, if you want some next steps, that's what it would look like. And let's dive in now to hitting profit Q&A. Cool? So I want to give you this kind of open mic here now as we wrap things up. And feel free to, you can just comment, question. Just type question in the comments if you've got a question. I'd love to do a few deep dives here while we're live into your business. If you've got a question around profitability, around how you're deciding to charge for services, understanding this whole net free cash flow thing, this is your chance to get some individual one-on-one, I guess not quite one-on-one because there's all of us here, but some individual deep dive answers to your questions.
Alex, I got a question real quick because I told people how we're saving $15,000 this year on taxes, which is $7,500 each. at least we're pretty feel pretty solid that that's the like floor of what we'll be able to save. And we do this through the
Oh,
structure
dude, we save that every quarter.
of how we set up our business and the structure. And so I think this is something that I kind of tease people with this. Would you be willing to share how we went from like not having a structure in place? And we say this in entity structure, by the way, this is not financial advice. This is for education and entertainment purposes. I've been watching so many crypto YouTube videos, and that's like how they intro every single one. So I want to say that, like, obviously do your own research. Alex and I went and did our own research, but we went from a certain business entity structure to how we do it now. And it's made a huge difference in how we're able to do taxes. I just feel like I baited people in with how we were saving taxes. And do you mind just sharing a little bit, Alex, of how we switched the structure?
Yeah. Do you want me to hit on the S Corp side specifically?
Yeah. How, like,
Sweet.
I think there are a lot of people that don't, like we didn't know a few years ago what we were paying in taxes as an LLC, self-employed versus moving ourselves as employees of our business and how we did that.
Yeah. So I think that this will set us up for the tax conversation in general. So I'll give you sort of the teaser to our next workshop, which will be complete tax deep dive. And this is definitely, like Will said, not financial advice. It's for entertainment and education purposes. That being said, oh my goodness, if you're making, if you're going to be making 50,000 a year or more in profit, then this is when it makes sense to look at this specific strategy. So when Will says entity, he's talking about having an LLC versus some other kind of entity. There's a lot out there. If you are an online business, an online coach, if you're not a brick and mortar, then you're probably an LLC. If you're a brick and mortar, you might be what's called a PLLC. Some of y'all choose to incorporate as C Corps, which always boggles my mind a little bit when you're starting out, but cool. This is something that you absolutely should talk about with the tax professional. Cool. This is not something like even I would not trust myself to make this decision. I still go and talk to my tax advisor to say, hey, is it time for me to do this? So you should have someone that you trust. If you don't have all your financial crap together, then maybe this is a sign that we should work together. If you're so early on in the business that you're not making money, then just go with an LLC. Okay. But let's say now you're making $50K in profit or more per year, and you realize that you want to pay less in taxes. Well, with an LLC, the way it works is money goes into your business, and the IRS sees it as, hey, you as the individual made that money. Okay, that's how an LLC works. They call it a pass-through entity. We'll get deep and nerdy on this stuff in the tax workshop, but basically the IRS says, hey, Will, if you own an LLC, Will Boyd, you're the one paying taxes on it as the individual, so you get all the income from the business. So you're getting taxed as a self-employed individual. If any of you have ever read or seen Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he talks about the cash flow quadrants, and one of them is being an employee. So that's like a W-2 employee, okay? One of them is being self-employed. That's the next one over. That's what having an LLC means. There's great benefits to it. You can write off your business expenses, and all of a sudden that can reduce your taxes. But then the next level is being a business owner. And we can't act like a business owner from a tax standpoint. Can't act like a business owner if we have an LLC. We act like self-employed individuals with how taxes work. So to really act like a business owner, we need a different type of business structure. And that's where an S Corp can really come into play. And so what Will and I did, we did our own research just like you're going to do. And this is maybe the start of doing your own research for you. We started researching how LLCs and S Corps worked and how taxes worked with all of them. And wouldn't you know, you can save a ton on taxes by switching over to an S Corp, as long as you're making 50,000 or more a year and your tax professional says it works and you're in the US, you can save a ton on taxes. And we'll get specific on like how it all works and the exact amounts and how it all breaks down. But basically, there's a whole chunk of change that you don't have to pay in taxes as an S Corp because you get taxed both as an employee of the business, because when you become an S Corp, suddenly you get taxed as an employee, which is still really how you're getting taxed as an LLC. You get taxed as an employee, but then you get taxed as a business owner. And being taxed as a business owner is much more favorable. There's a whole portion of tax that you don't have to pay. It's this 15.3% of tax that you don't pay. So for Will and I, for example, as we switched to S Corp status, it saved somewhere around $10,000 a year each in our tax bill, like each. and that's money that we would have had to pay to the IRS that we directly get to keep in our pockets. And so y'all have seen all of our profitability numbers and stuff at this point. So we're all very open with what we do here. But that's on us making about $300,000 of revenue a year. Again, that's split between the two of us. Our profit, I think we showed it was around a little over 200K. So at over 100K in profit each, we were saving about 10,000 in taxes. So it's a ton. It's a very significant amount. And I guess I'll leave this for a teaser for our taxes workshop coming up next, that you'll definitely want to see how that all works and understand taxes at a deep level so you can make the best decision. Because what we didn't really talk about today is taxes are usually the number one cost in a business. It's the most significant amount of your income that goes out the door. And if you don't understand it, then you're just going to pay a lot of it. And if you do understand it, then you will legally pay much less. And I want you to do things legally and ethically in your business. And so we'll show you in our tax workshop how to legally pay less and feel really good about it, and be able to have a structure where you can save this. Like Will said, it's $7,500. It's actually he under promised and will over deliver here and show you how you could save significantly more. So I don't know if that answers the question, Will. That was maybe a little bit high level dancing around the topic. Maybe it was too deep. I don't know. Did I answer your question though?
You answered the question. Yep. So I think, as Alex said, do your own research. Talk if you have a CPA or an accountant. Could be a good person to talk to see if it would make sense for you. Obviously, we don't know your numbers, so we can't say, hey, probably a great idea for you. We just want to tell you what we do. And shout out to Cashflow Tactics, a group that we've worked with for a while that have helped us kind of expand our mind into the game of wealth, right? And how people stay wealthy. And we want you to be profitable so you can play the game of wealth. Otherwise, you play the game of month to month, which is not very wealthy world. I mean, wealth in terms of financial comfort and stability, you might be wealthy from happiness, which is great. That's really important. But here we're talking about how do you create a sense of calm and comfort in your financial life, which we know is one of the biggest drivers of personal dissatisfaction, of marital problems, right? Money is always up there. So the more that you can get a grip on this stuff, the better it can take just the edge off of certain areas of life or prevent things becoming sort of a problem in life. So yeah, absolutely. Do your own research. We just wanted to share with you. I told you guys, I figured I should get Alex to talk about it because
thank you for reminding me, man.
I sent that email out, and I know I baited I know one of you who's watched this on the replay got baited in by how we're saving $15,000 on taxes. So hey,
you stay to the end, you get all the goods, right? That's where all the goods come. So yeah, the whole S corp thing is really interesting too, because it forces you to pay yourself as an employee of the business. Now all of a sudden you start getting a W-2 salary from it, and we're building a house right now, and I'll tell you, gosh, life gets so different once you start involving large amounts of money like mortgages and being an entrepreneur. Wow, y'all, it's such a different world. If you ever want to buy or build a house as an entrepreneur, you have to make money. Like you have to show the bank money, and not just money in the business. Like it can't be revenue in the business. They don't care about revenue at all. They'll look at revenue, but they don't care about it. All they care about is net free cash flow. Kind of funny how that works, huh? Interesting. They only care about what do you actually keep from that. Gives you a sign as to what you should care about too. And so as I've been going through this ridiculous process of getting our house going, man, I'm glad that we've got a business that's profitable, and not just on paper, but actually profitable, to be able to show them, yeah, here's our profit numbers. It's really interesting, y'all. They're going to take the past 2 years. And this is because I've been through this so many times now with multiple banks. They'll look at your past 2 years. And they'll say, hey, what's your average monthly profit averaged out over the past 2 years? And then they'll say, okay, well, how much loan do you want? And they'll give you a specific amount. Usually they'll say 42% of what you bring home. That's usually a limit for a lot of lenders. Hey, we'll let you borrow 42% of your monthly income. And that's how much house you could afford. So stuff gets really, really important for not just like you making money and feeling like you're taking care of yourself, but for being able to afford life and afford housing and stuff down the road. It all becomes really important for that. And a lot of times people don't think about that. I actually have people who, by the way, I've got people who, we had a client who right now that we're working with who tax advisor was telling them to switch to an S corp structure. And the interesting thing about an S corp structure is you pay less in taxes, but it'll also change how your profitability is reported. So it's like, hey, you actually don't want to go become an S corp. And so for full transparency, when we applied for our loan this year, I had to undo all of our S corp stuff because I had to show as much profit as possible, and I had to not take as many business deductions as I could. And we had to show that from a tax standpoint. I actually had to file taxes not showing as many business expenses as possible to show as much revenue as possible, as much profit as possible. And so in some cases, it might not make sense. If you're planning on buying a house next year, like, gosh, maybe it doesn't make sense for you to go the S Corp route, which is why that's why people come to us and get help with all this stuff, because it's complicated, and making these decisions is not it's not always cookie cutter. In fact, it's never cookie cutter, which is why we have our own financial coaches that we go to for very specific things, right? As Will and I are diving into the world of crypto investing, which we're not talking about here, but my goodness, I would not be doing that unless I had someone who knew what they were doing and I felt comfortable with that. Same thing with investing in real estate. When we started doing that, we started the process 2 years ago, and it finally happened this year. Gosh, I was so grateful for our coaches that guided us through that. And that's why, like Will said, coaching has always been our number one expense, because with these kinds of decisions, I don't trust myself to make them when I don't know what I don't know. And I think that's why it's so important that, that ends up being something that we routinely search for in our business, is who has the answer. And this is why I really want you to focus on what is the next problem you need to solve in your business. That's why I put that pyramid in there. If it's marketing and sales, go find someone who knows marketing and sales inside and out and has the business that you want. And then hire that person, or has helped lots of businesses like the one that you want. And then go hire that person to shortcut you making this thing happen. And a lot of times we look at that and we say, gosh, that's going to hit my profitability because it's an expense. Yeah, but is it going to allow you to make more money than what you spend and in turn create profit for you? When Will and I hired our $4,000 a month coach earlier this year, it was like, wow, that's a lot in expenses to take on. That nearly doubled our expenses in one expenditure. Well, guess what? It allowed us to go create $9,000 a month of new revenue from what we learned from that coach within that month. And so it was a very profitable thing. So all these things play into it. And this is why understanding profitability and your numbers becomes so important with the decisions you make. Cool. All right. I don't know if anyone has any other specific questions. If you do, just type me in the comments. We'll pull you up for a minute. I've got a few more minutes that I blocked out before my family's going to be calling for me. Will, this was fun. I enjoyed this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think probably we'll leave it here, guys. And if you have any questions, come join us over in our Facebook group, Profitable Online Business Community. Come hang out there. We do talks like this all the time. And if you are interested in working with us, just shoot us a message. Happy to talk to you. Otherwise, we will catch you guys on the next workshop, which I'll keep you notified of, which will be on taxes and how are you going to maximize tax time or minimize, however you want to look at it. And it should be a good one. So, dude, super pumped. Hope this was helpful for people. We're getting in. We're still tweaking all of this whole workshop thing and how we do it and present it. So if you have any feedback too, if you're like, hey, I wanted to see this, or I didn't think it was that, like, super grateful if you have any feedback. We are continually learning and trying to improve the process. So thank you so much for your time to be here. It really means a lot to us. So many of you stayed on for almost 2 hours, which is incredible. So time is a precious asset, and thank you for spending it with us.
Thanks, y'all. Bye, guys.